Hey legends, Andrew from Illumin8 here. Today we're catching up with a good friend of ours, Nikki, who runs a business called Silky Tots. Now Silky Tots is an e-commerce platform that sells products for Australia, the UK and the US, but I'll let Nikki tell you a little bit more about Silky Tots herself. Now you might be wondering, why on earth are we hanging out with some ponies in a bit of a rural setting? Well, that's a really large part of Nikki's story, as well as the way that Illumin8 has been working with her to achieve this kind of goal lifestyle. So why don't we come hang out with me, and we're going to check out with Nikki soon. Nikki, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us.
No, thanks for coming.
Excellent. So before we kind of dive into a bit more about what you do and how we do it, Silky Tots, what on earth is that? Are we talking just about like dolls made out of silk? Are we talking about, what is Silky Tots?
Silky Tots is a brand that specialises in silk bedding for babies and children.
Yep.
So essentially sleeping on silk reduces friction, which helps stop baby hair loss, and it's good for dry skin and eczema.
Does it help like male pattern baldness?
No,
because
I
that
would
be really handy if it could.
Yeah, I would be a multi-billionaire if we could do that.
You've got a bit of your product there. So it's like bedding. My kids use it as well. Like so bedding, pillowcases, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
really
all
cool.
natural. It's really good for them.
How did you get to the point going, hey, I'm going to do some silk-based products?
My daughter was getting a bald spot when she was a baby, and I'd pick her up off the bassinet and there'd be hair on the sheet. And I had a silk pillowcase, so I was like, oh well, she was sleeping on silk, this wouldn't happen. And I looked online, could not find anything anywhere. So of course I'm like, well, I'm gonna do it.
There you go.
So that was the start of it.
And that was 6 years or so ago now, right?
Yeah.
And fast forward to now, you run a successful e-commerce brand.
Yeah.
You're in Australia, you're in the UK, you're in the US, and other kind of regions of Asia for shipping-based purposes.
Yeah.
What has that journey been like from, hey, my kid's got a bald patch, to the scale of business that you've built now?
For me, I always, from the start, I planned to go international. It had to be worth it. It had to go international. So I spent a lot of time planning. It was almost 2 years from idea through sampling, setting everything up until we had the website live. Because then when it launched, I was then able to scale quickly.
And before that point, had you had any business experience? Had you run businesses, built brands, that kind of stuff?
I had a Turkish beach towel brand, which wasn't huge, but I learned a lot from it.
Yep.
We did a lot of wholesale. We sold into Sea Folly, Sunburn stores, but not so much the e-commerce side. That's definitely been a learning curve.
Gotcha. And so 6 years ago, you spent a couple of years of preparation, and we started working together. And the thing I love about it is we started working together before you even started the business.
Yeah.
Why was that? I
just wanted to be really prepared, having the experience with Beach Candy before. And as I said, it wasn't quite as professional as Silky Tots. I did leave the accounting to the last minute, and then it was like trying to go back through everything and reconcile, and it was a nightmare. So I knew before I launched Silky Tots that I wanted to be on top of everything. I wanted to use Xero, which I hadn't used before. And so I tried to look at the online tutorials for Xero, and it just went too hard. Contacted you guys and asked for some training, which I did with Shane.
Yes, which is great. I think it's a really good starting point for a lot of people early in their business, is to understand, well, how do I go about using the technology to manage my finances, whether it's invoicing or expenses or cash flow. And so you took that step. Now, over the last 6 years, our services have expanded quite considerable as you've grown in your business too. Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit to that. So you were running your business, things kind of started well, and then they went bang.
It took off very quickly. We were the first brand worldwide to market silk for babies for this reason, and so it just exploded. And I was busy wearing all the hats, and so I was lucky enough to hand over the bookkeeping, as well as all the accounting and VAS and all the things, the things to you guys. Which was obviously really helpful, so I could focus on what I was good at.
Yeah, and so one of the things that you and I personally spend a lot of time is catching up on a really consistent basis, typically around monthly, and sometimes those conversations are dealing with freak out, holy shit, what's going on moments. Other times it's more strategic pointed things. One of the things that we worked on a little while ago, you were looking at making a push into wholesaling market, bringing your business partner on and really going quite a scale. but you decided not to. Talk to me about
Yeah.
that decision around deciding not to push down something that people might think would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, well, I think at the start, when you're trying to grow a business, I said yes to everything. I was
Yep.
doing all the collaborations and launching all the products into every territory, and this opportunity came up, which seemed like a really good idea. She was an amazing businesswoman. She was a GM for Illumin8 in Europe, which were huge, worth
Yep.
millions and millions. And she was going to help me move into Europe and do wholesale, and it was this whole big plan. And a conversation with you made me realize it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't lifestyle-wise. The question that you asked me was, if you could wake up tomorrow and you could do anything, what would you do? And I took a minute to think about it, and I was like, well, I wouldn't be going to, a corner office in a city block with 30 staff. I don't want that. I want to drop my kids off at school, ride my horse, work for a few hours, and then pick my kids up. That was the end goal for me.
And I remember you saying that quite vividly, particularly around the horse element of what that is, and like you're having done it so much growing up, and then not doing it as much at that
And I
point
wasn't
in your life.
riding at that point.
Did you even have a horse at that point?
No.
So you'd kind of lost that element of something that was really important.
Yeah. So at that point, I think my daughters would have been, like 2 and 3 maybe, and I'd stopped riding before I had them because my plan was to focus on kids and everything, and I just didn't think that financially I could make it work and lifestyle-wise. And certainly I think moving down that path with this huge big company, like it wouldn't have fit in with that. And I never thought I would ride again at that point. But
and I think what's interesting is like it's quite possible that if you went down that path, you might still be sitting here today, but it would be in a different way, in a different perspective. And I think the things that you valued the most at that point in time, you might have had to park them for a period of time that you were just not comfortable for, which would have been family and the lifestyle and the horses. Obviously, we're sitting in your stables now in a home, and we've got who's this horse?
That's RJ.
This is RJ. We've got RJ behind, who's been very moody with me.
He doesn't look very happy.
He's been giving me kisses when I'm not looking, and then as soon as I turn around, he ignores me. But then you've got some acreage and a few other horses and whatnot. This has been quite a substantial change from where you were 4 or 5 years ago to where you are now. Talk to me about, obviously, some of the catalyst was the conversations we had, the decision not to go there.
I think the key is you've got to, I think you've got to start with where you want to be, like your end goal, and then you help me work out, well, how do we get there? And it was literally, right, well, how much money do you want to take home every month? Like how are you going to have to pay for what you're wanting to achieve? And then working back on how we can make that happen, which was saying yes to some opportunities, saying no to other things, and then really just focusing on what was going to work.
And having the perspective of initially that conversation is, this is what I want to achieve, what my life to look like, those kind of things. And then there's a period of time where you want it to happen, and there's obviously a cost associated. We can work that all backwards, but I think when we look the other way around, where it's like, this will make me more money, well, why? What do I need the money for? What time will it take out of me, which is good. And so you've got a couple of kids as well. Obviously, when you started this business was built out of your kids and your partner as well. So all 4 of you kind of get to kind of hang around here and play with horses and stuff. And how have you found that, I guess, from a family element? From that kind of perspective
no, it's great. Like the main thing, the reason that I wanted to start the business in the first place was I didn't want my kids to have to go into care while I was working, 9 to 5. I'm able to attend their sports days, and there are many athletic stuff and assemblies and everything else that they do, which is great. So yeah, that was the most important thing out of anything.
And I think it would be remiss of us to say that this was an easy thing to achieve. Like there's been a lot of hard work that you've had to go through. There's been stressful moments. There's been moments where you're probably questioning, have I made the right decision, or those kind of things. What stayed the course for you throughout this whole process of like making certain decisions, getting back into the horse world, and then eventually purchasing a property and kind of having a lifestyle that you've built now? What are those things that have helped you to stay the course through that last few years?
I think information, knowing my numbers. I'm very big picture, very quite reactive, and having my monthly meetings with you and having our break-even calculators and all of our reports and everything there and accessible and easy to read to help me understand where the business was at, which made me give you the tools I needed, or the information I needed to scale. And the amount of money that I spend each month on ads, I would never have done that or been confident doing that without knowing the numbers.
Absolutely, we're looking at what that return on investment looks like. As if I put $1 here, is going to give me back what I need. And what I loved is over the years is you've started bringing more information to me than I've been bringing to you. Like I've been looking.
You've rubbed off on me. I love a spreadsheet now.
Love a spreadsheet, right? We love that the data and the numbers. That empowers you to make decisions. Well, I'm glad that your accounting brain is kind of flexing these days comparative to where it was. If you kind of put yourself back in your shoes 6 years ago, going through that idea stage, and you're someone else, you're going to give advice to your 6 years ago person, what's something you might say at that point in time around approaching your business and what you've done today?
Just go for it. Don't be scared to jump in with both feet, but make sure you've got the right people around you. I think, and you know your numbers.
Excellent. We happen to know really good accountants if you need. Awesome. Well, I'm not going to go right, RJ.
You're boring him. He's falling asleep.
He's falling asleep. You're probably going to. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure working with you and the family.
You too.
And I know my kids, every time they come and visit, ask if we can buy a horse as well.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if we're going to do it for a bit.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.